Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Baris Alkis, and in this channel we talk about photography and filmmaking. In this episode I want to talk about some of the tricks that I use to edit my images over on Lightroom and Photoshop. Let's roll the intro. Okay, before we get into some of the tricks that I use to edit my images, let's talk about which software I use to edit my images. When it comes to editing photos, I'm all about Adobe. Unlike video, I use Adobe Lightroom Classic most of the time, and sometimes I throw my images over to Photoshop to spice them up. And in this video, I want to talk about 4 simple tricks that I use to edit basically all of my images, and these are not in a particular order. I like all of them equally. First on my list is applying grain to my images. I don't love images that are too sharp, at least with my style of photography, and a lot of my tones are very sweet. So adding a little bit of grain to these shots makes the images look less processed, more natural, more stylish, and a lot more, what's the word? Cozier. Especially nowadays, we're approaching towards the fall season. It's my favorite season to shoot, and with that, giving that warm look really works for me right now. And I add my grain over on Lightroom. There's no specific reason for that, and my grain settings is about 30% for the amount and 50 and 60 for the size and roughness. And that's it. That's my first trick. So number 2 on the list is depth blur. Number 2 is a new one. Well, it really isn't a new one. I used to do this manually. Photoshop just got an update. I feel like not a lot of people know about this update. If you go to your neural filters, you're able to add basically fake bokeh to your images. I always thought this would be a good feature for Photoshop to have. So I used to do this manually. What I used to do is I would double layer the image, cut out the subject, and blur the background that way, and that would take a lot of time to complete. And with this tool, it's like you're 5 seconds away from creating an amazing bokeh. Now the trick with this is not to overdo it. I wouldn't say there's, a standard setting that you should dial. Every image is different in terms of depth. A perfect example would be if you are shooting at 1.8, maybe push it to 1.4, maybe to 1.2. That kind of idea, right? Like you don't want to go from shooting from 5.6 aperture to 1.2. It's gonna give a fake look. You know how cell phones create that fake blur around you to do bokeh? You don't want to do that with this. You want to go very slightly. You want to go very easy with this. And this is just located on your neural filters. And if you've never used this feature, you might have to go to your neural filters and download this function for the first time use. But remember, do not go crazy with it. All right, we're back to Lightroom. One of the tools that never changed for me within the last few years is the masking tool. I'm a really big fan of masking my images. Like this feature adds dimension to your shot, it adds liveness to your shot. You can do all kinds of lighting manipulations to make that image really pop out. When I look at my images, I see a lot of different masking, like on top of each other, they're layered. I do the brush, I do the select subject, I do the radial filter. Here's an example of a shot that's edited without any masking and one with edited with masking. You can see the difference. There's so much more accent in the second shot, and I love that. And Lightroom has an amazing feature now called subject select. If you have a portrait or if you have an object as your subject, what this does is that it's able to select your subject, and then you're able to add all the edits just like the other masking tools. And that's something I used to brush before to be able to get my subject, but now it's all there within a click of a button, and I just love it. And then we're on to the next one, and that's preset intensity. Just recently, Lightroom released an update that allows you to choose the intensity of your presets. This is why I love Adobe when it comes to photography. They're always updating their stuff, unlike Adobe Premiere. Just a side note, I'm so glad I left Premiere. I should probably make a separate video about that. So yes, this preset intensity feature allows you to choose the amount of preset you want to use essentially. You see, I find that a lot of presets sometimes get really heavy, especially on the skin tones. In order to make the image look more natural, you're able to dial it down now. And I know some of my presets are not the best for portraits. They're made for more of that urban street vibe. But when I use this intensity slider, I'm able to use all of my presets for my portraits to get that similar look. One thing I would say though, I would add a little bit more contrast onto your image after selecting the intensity. If you're making the intensity pretty weak, I feel like it sucks out a lot of the contrast. But hey, that's it for today. I hope this video was helpful, and if anything, all of these things you might already know about, but you know, I personally enjoy videos like this. It kind of makes me think, okay, like this is good, like I'm not the only one doing these. So there's definitely going to be more episodes on my photography tips, but then I think I will do video versions as well, and there are so many things to talk about when it comes to video. If you are new to the channel, welcome, and if you have been here for a bit, you're greatly appreciated. I thank you all so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.